What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So for today's horror news update, we are going right back to what it feels like to the well too many times. And you've heard me say time and time again, if you're going to adapt a video game into a movie, you got to do it right. You got to somehow in some way stick to a level of the source material versus just taking the name of a game, a few aspects of it, and then the 95% of it is just some other story that has nothing to do with the game, with the source material. So we've seen this again, time and time again, and it has just failed over and over. So I think one of the most recent, stories that we can look at is Borderlands from last year, 2024. It had really, if you saw the film, I'm sorry you saw the film. It was just absolutely trash, not having anything to do with Borderlands, the video game, or at least in my opinion, didn't have really anything to do with the Borderlands video game. So I've also talked about the fact of Assassin's Creed. Now, I love Assassin's Creed. I love the video game series franchise. It's one of my favorite to play, especially when as they've developed the game over time, they keep adding more and more options for you to do, like side quests, where you don't necessarily have to follow the main mission. I mean, obviously I think in some games, originally when they started adding that, there was only so many side quests you could do before it forced you to now you have to play a couple of the main story missions or to open up more side quests. So that I understand. But when it comes to a franchise like Resident Evil, we have seen several video games, and we have seen countless movies in this franchise. Now, in my opinion, the first film, when it came out, it just didn't. I think it was just a product, and you've heard me say this before, it was a product of its time. It came out in, I think, 2001, 2002. So we're talking 23, 24 years ago, that first film came out. So again, I understand what the film was trying to achieve then. But we have seen, I think, what I can think of, 1, 2, 3, 6. I think there's been 6 films thus far, actually 7 films. Because we had the original 6, and then they attempted to do a reboot already in 2021. So as that movie franchise kept going on, it just felt like less and less of Resident Evil, without them just trying to throw something in there to make you feel like it has something to do with the video game franchise. Now, many of the video games didn't hit, but I think for the vast majority of the video games, they're pretty entertaining, they're pretty fun to play. Now here we are. New Resident Evil movie from Barbarian director Zach Cregger sparks heated bidding war. Barbarian Zach, I think it's Cregger or Cregger, I think it's Cregger actually, is set to write and direct a new Resident Evil movie, and studios are engaged in a heated bidding war. So that right there is interesting, that they're already in a bidding war, a heated bidding war, to get this new interpretation or this reboot of Resident Evil. So let's go down into the arc a little bit, see if there's some more details. So Zach is set to write and direct a new Resident Evil movie, and THR reports that it has sparked a major bidding war among studios eager to acquire the Barbarian director's next project. 4 studios are reportedly attempting to snag the project, with sources saying Warner Brothers and Netflix are among them. Cregger's take is being described as a revamp that will take the title to its horror roots and more faithfully to the initial games. Jeff Snyder was the first to bring up the possibility of Cregger tackling a new Resident Evil movie back in September. The Resident Evil franchise first made the leap to the big... Okay, so it was 2002. The film was a success and spawned 5 sequels, which collectively grossed over $1.2 billion worldwide. Again, I'm not saying the films weren't successful. I just, again, as I was mentioning earlier, I just don't feel they were very true to the video games. An attempt was made to reboot the franchise in 2021. I mentioned that with Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City, but the film grossed just $42 million worldwide and received mixed reviews, which, again, not surprised that it did. Let's see if there's anything else in here that gives us an idea. So Cregger is no stranger to being the subject of a bidding war after the success of Barbarian. Studios were scrambling to get into Cregger's business for his follow-up film Weapons, New Line Cinema emerged as the victor, shelling out some serious bucks for the project and giving Cregger final cut privilege. Zach proved with Barbarian that he can create a versatile theatrical experience for audiences and that he commands every tool in the filmmaker tool belt, said New Line's president and CCO Richard Brenner. We couldn't be happier that he, Roy, and Mary, and JD and Rafi chose New Line to be the home of his next film, and hope that it's the first of many to come. Not much is known about Weapons, only that it takes place in a small community after a group of kids mysteriously disappear overnight. Then it just goes on to talk about weapons, and that's where the article ends. So I'm surprised there's a bidding war for something that might not even be fully, written. I mean, it sounds like if they're just hoping to just get content. I mean, Warner Brothers, I'm surprised they even have money to even go into a bidding war with anybody, especially if this price gets high. We know Warner Brothers is hurting for money. Warner Brothers has been hurting for money for quite some time, and even to the point where they've been starting to look to like rent out or send out some of their big properties to other platforms or other studios to do stuff with because they need the money, right? The only thing I can think of big that Warner Brothers has going on, I mean, it's happening within DC. We know there's a new DCU starting up. The new Superman film comes out this year. But we also know over on Max, they've been casting, at least last year, they started casting for this new Harry Potter TV series that they're going to be doing, where they're pretty much rebooting or restarting up Harry Potter from the beginning, but making it a TV series over on Max, which I don't think is going to be successful, especially since they're already showing that they're not staying true to the source material. And so, but we're not going to get into that. That's that's outside of horror, so we're not touching that. But when it comes to this, because it comes to Resident Evil, I'll be surprised if Warner Brothers wins this one. I think it will probably end up over on Netflix. It's unfortunate, though, that if this turns out to be something that is pretty good from a trailer perspective and it has a lot of money, budget thrown at it, that they wouldn't want to put it in theaters, that they would just put it strictly on Netflix for streaming. I mean, we've seen that lately where I think even Apple has put some movies on their Apple TV app strictly where I think it should be going to theaters, like The Gorge. I think that film should not just be going on to Apple TV for streaming. That film should be going to theaters, in my opinion, based on the first trailer we got last year. So overall, though, with Resident Evil, I don't necessarily think we need more Resident Evil films. Again, we've got the 6. They tried rebooting this a little less than 4 years ago. Didn't work out. Now we're rebooting it a second time with really a third go around, but a second reboot. Sometimes I think it's just okay to let franchises either be what they are, they're over and done with, or at least give it some time and some breathing room before you decide to do another reboot after one that already failed. So beyond that, we don't have any, obviously it's too early for any casting to be talked about for this if they're just now starting to bid for a potential script. If they happen to get that solved over the next few months, we might get some casting information on this later next year. This looks to be more like a 2026, possibly even a 2027 film. And that's still if it's going on to Netflix. But if Netflix decides to throw enough money at it to speed up production, we could get this then in 2026, possibly. And then where do you really go from there? Are they just going to build this franchise out on Netflix as far as any additional sequels? So anyways, more to come on this one once we know more. And that will do it for today's horror news and update. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I just want to say a quick thank you and appreciation to all my new and existing subscribers. I do appreciate the support. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about Resident Evil. Do you want to see another Resident Evil film? And do you want to see a second reboot of this franchise after the failed one from 2021? And do you feel that any of the original films, whether it was the 6 original or the reboot film, held true to the source materials, held true to the video games? Again, let us know down in the comment section, and we will see you at the next one. Peace.